Hello everyone and welcome. Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street. I hope you're doing fantastically well wherever you are in the world. Today we are going through an update of IOTA on the exchange, an absolutely phenomenal AI IoT powerhouse. These guys, I'm honestly saying, will make ripples in blockchain technology as well as changing the world for the good. There are multiple projects like this. We cover quite a few of them already, like Fetch AI, IOTX. We're about to do the Matrix AI one as well. But IOTA, they're quite special and possibly ahead of the game in some aspects. But the community is fantastic. The engagement is fantastic. Let's take a few looks at some of the updates that we've seen over the last week or so since the last video. So one thing I wanted to pull out, when you see partnerships with unbelievably massive IT technology companies such as Dell, your eyes do widen slightly. So this is about tackling climate change, and this is mainly the topic that we're going to cover with IOTA today. Of course, Agenda 30 is pretty much in full swing. We've seen the UN Assembly this week as well, and not only that, but we've also seen in the UK in the last 48 hours supply chain issues and fuel issues, all of these kind of things coming together. It's almost like it's coincidental and managed to a point where they've created the problem, they have the solutions, and it's sitting right in front of us now. Certainly one of the options, that's for sure. So this is really around implementing the likes of IOTA with Dell around security, proof of staking protocols and things like this to make the world essentially better. We will go into a case study in a minute, not through Dell, but through something called Cup Crush, which is really interesting. But this whole aspect of Dell, of course, with the IT industry that they've always been in, security and data has always been two of their key aspects of their company's drive for however long. I think Dell's quite an old company, obviously, for decades. I mean, one of my first computers was a Dell when I was a kid, and yeah, it's just gone leaps and bounds since then in terms of technological aspects, not just in laptops and things, but worldwide technology domination, similar to Hewlett Packard as well. So because of the amount of transactions, because of the amount of tokenomics that we're looking at as the world moves forward, particularly in supply chain, particularly in the environmental factors, and we talk about supply chain quite recently. This is mentioned some parts about automotive industry. For example, you would buy a car or a used car, but you only go on the service data that you have in the logbook and this, that, and the other. The whole tokenomics aspect and smart aspect of blockchain is that your historic document is then tokenized within blockchain. No manipulation, no fraud. So if you want to buy a car through the system and it's on blockchain, you would have every historic element of that car, even material items. So there's no fobbing off of parts anymore, over extortionate prices at garages and things like that, because you have the ability to see what the prices of materials and parts are actually supposed to be. And then you can accumulate in your mind when you're buying a used car, for example, how efficient that is in the cost, and determine whether this algorithm of cost is accurate or not. So all of that's going out the window hopefully very soon. I think it's a great thing for the world and for people, power back to the people. But the environmental impact is exactly the same. Of course, we're looking at things like the energy tokenization very soon. People are looking left, right, and center on media about supply chains and energy chain issues, electrical companies going bust. It's all part of the plan, guys. And things like EWT that we've covered, Power, POWR, Ledger, all coming together. IOTA is the whole point of this is about data transparency, IoT, AI coming together. We did an intro video on this market. It's absolutely phenomenal. It doesn't just stop at automotive. It's healthcare, environmental, energy aspects. It's about economics. It's about finance, anything and everything you possibly think of utilizing blockchain. And one of the things that they emphasize, which I've really liked, is not trying to be the overall number one leader in this space, but proactively promoting that in order for the world to work and in order for blockchain to work collectively in a consensus method, everyone needs to work together. There's not going to be just one solution to everything in blockchain. You have to have a multitude of them, but also you have to have the interoperability for all the chains to work. Yeah. on a hyper ledger essentially and a hyper blockchain system. Okay, you can have expertise in areas. Healthcare, for example, Solve, as we cover. You've got IOTA here and loads of other AI ones. You've got the energy tokens, you've got the finance tokens. They all need to be interoperable at some point to work, right? And that's what I loved about this particular article. They really cover that aspect. But of course, this thing around greenwashing is quite interesting. So greenwashing is around that sort of data around the environmental impacts, where companies say, oh, we've saved X amount of emissions, when actually they haven't. They've just thrown a random number in the air. With the use of tokenomics and data-driven analysis through blockchain, all of that goes out the window. So actually have more of a definitive number, which helps the economy in the sense that we don't have falsified numbers. So when Agenda 30 and all the World Economic Forums and UN come together with all their statistics, maybe a lot of that's out of order. It's not mathematically correct. So that it reduces that aspect, and we have more clearer goals, more aspiration to become unified to our goal towards climate change and improvement in the ecosystem that we have in this world. Some people believe in the climate change narrative, some people don't, but the fact of the matter is we're in a program which is defining this. Whether it's about control, financial gain, whatever it is helping the world at some point. Okay, even if it's a narrative to push electric cars to make a lot of people money, that's got to be good for the environment. It's better to be breathing in nothing in terms of emissions of fuel and stuff than it is breathing in fuel, right? So of course there's mechanisms of an argument to say electric power is still consuming a lot of energy and this, that and the other, but we can't win it just yet until tokenomics and blockchain takes over the entire system, and it's coming, guys. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when, and it's going to be soon. So just thought I'd pull this information out. Go and check out the website Dell Technologies. It's under Perspective Tackling Climate Change with Blockchain. And IOTA Foundation are the key aspect of this Q&A section. Other things for IOTA, we've got the Chrysalis network going live as of now, and the development status of IOTA continues to develop. One of the key information aspects that I wanted to pull out, as we've mentioned with the environmental and sustainability, is a interesting case study with something called Cup Crush. Okay, so go and check out the video on YouTube. It's really interesting, but it's very much around how is blockchain going to help the reduction in waste and improve the environmental aspects of the way we do things in our lifestyle, in the way we purchase and consume, and all these other things that contribute to the same thing. So untangling IOTA is very interesting about the tangling mechanism that they keep talking about. Okay, so data transparency we've already covered. Scalability and resource is another thing. Okay, so with tokenomics, because of resource that's required for data and analysis and essentially scaling the data required for a consensus model, IOTA removes all of that application. So you're removing costs, you're removing resource, and making something more real time and more time efficient. Okay, but this Cup Crush was quite interesting. Like I said, go and check it out. Unfortunately, I can't find the actual post now because there's so many things that I had to keep pushing out every 5 seconds. But we'll have a look at that. Let me just see if I can find IOTA Cup Crush. So basically, this is around the case study of cups that you buy in, for example, Starbucks or other places like coffee outlets and things like this. And it's a general known fact that majority of the cups, albeit say they're recyclable, actually it's usually the little card bit that comes around the cup that is recyclable, but the rest of it has still got mechanisms of fiber related to plastic. Okay, so here we go. Just go and just Google or look through Twitter of IOTA Cup Crush. Okay, it's really interesting. So how do they fix this? Okay, and they were saying about 1,000 cups measuring about 1 metric tons, and waste aggregators, i.e. the people that would pick up waste from landfills. And when we talk about recycling, we mean how do people make money off recycling? If you can't make money off it, they don't recycle it. Okay, because there has to be a mechanism in place for people to make money, right? Because people don't do things for free. This is the world. If anyone's ever heard of it, go check out the Venus Project. Okay, a really interesting project. I knew about this maybe 10, 12 years ago. Unfortunately, the founder passed away recently, but the project continues to drive towards a sustainable environment to the point where no one needs to work, there's no tax, there's no monetary value, Of course, machine to machine learning is taking over. How can we get to that point? And I actually pinpointed these kind of areas of like IOTA and everything, working towards that aspect. So it's really, really interesting in that sector. But going back to this point about waste aggregators, so these are people who buy the old cups or other landfill items and then regurgitate them for a cost where they would then sell on the recyclable goods to someone else. And that whole circle is really important to understand. Okay, so for example, the aggregator would have to essentially be paid for the conversion, and they would get some money for that. But if they don't, they're obviously not going to do it, and they're not going to buy off the landfill. Thus, we have more and more landfill space being filled constantly all the time. What would happen with the likes of IOTA and blockchain technology, and this, going back to the beginning of this video about mechanisms of the automotive industry, how healthcare can be supply chain mechanism of tracking, tracing, etc. through algorithm of smart contracts and data. It's the same principle as this. Putting a QR code, for example, at the bottom of the cup, which is what I explained in the video, will allow the whole transactional and historic data of that cup to then notify what the value is of this, okay, and its recyclability, okay. If it's not recycled, then what happens is with IOTA, they've allowed a system where if within 30 days the value has not been acknowledged and reached, then it will not be recycled. But within that 30-day period, generally, it can be recycled, and there's a reduction to the cost of things like the council and a reduction of taxes, because what they're doing is essentially removing the need for clear up and everything like this, and utilizing something that is in a complete automated supply chain. And actually, the governments and councils will receive money for this. So an element of the cost of a cup will go to these various different distribution elements, council elements, cleanup elements, and aggregator elements as well. So let's take these 1,000 cups as a metric ton, for example, when they were saying about the conversion aspect, they could make $1,000 per ton. Okay, so per ton, i.e. the 1,000 cups, they can make $1,000. That's an incentive for these guys to utilize blockchain. So using like the technological aspects of IOTA, digital ID of the cup, scanning if it's recyclable or not, and what's historic data, that whole distributed ledger technology holds the interesting assets of data and also the stored value of that item. I'm not just talking about cups, I'm talking about anything and everything possible through supply chain mechanism, AI, algorithm, automation, supply chain, everything that I just mentioned. Okay, so the digital account is on the distributed ledger, supply mechanism is also built in, and there's a reward system for recycling for everyone. Okay, utilizing tokenomics. There is no fee to this, there is no cost aspect, because it's being distributed by a ledger utilizing tokenomics and blockchain emphasis. How cool is that, to reduce and remove cost to recycling and the environmental impacts that we have? Use that philosophy towards anything and everything else that we could do with IOTA. And their DevNet and all the Chrysalis projects are working towards improving the development of this platform, the tokenomics aspect, how it will work within communities, within smart grids, within city centers. Anything and everything that we do in maybe 5-10 years time will be operating through blockchain. You won't even know it's happened. You'll just see some nice adverts about being green from the end user, i.e. the coffee shops will announce, oh, we are green, we're doing this. They won't say in the background how we've done this unless you go and dig into the blogs and the interesting information in the background. But this is coming, and it's a beautiful thing. You know, so that's what I was saying about agendas and narratives and things about believing or not believing climate change and this, that, and the other. It's all good in that aspect. Yeah. Yes, of course, you could say there's an element of control and manipulation to make companies make money, blah, blah, blah. But these guys, the whole point of decentralization and blockchain is to improve the world. Machine to machine learning, so humans don't have to do as much in that aspect. We can go on and do other things like exploration, learn how to cure things, learn how to build our world better. Build back better. Great campaign that was. Maybe they should use that in the World Economic Forum and Agenda 30 and politically around the world. Build back better. The Great Reset is here. IOTA is a big, big part of the future. There's others, of course, but IOTA is a fantastic one to cover. We cover IOTX, we're about to cover Matrix AI, we cover Fetch AI, anything AI, IO2 related, we love it. And we can see why. Guys, let's go into the chart. If you like this video, please press that big thumbs up button, it massively helps out. Subscribe if you have not done so already. We are smashing through it. We're nearly on the 2,000 mark, and thank you so much for your support, and especially the community out there on Twitter, Telegram, Facebook, TikTok. I think I've got them all there. I have to remind myself. But guys, the chart is looking quite good at the moment in terms of its move from the last few months. We covered that in the last video very briefly. We had the 263% increase from that point around the 20th of July, which was sat at 57 cents, a fantastic entry point. We got all the way up to $2. We've had a small retracement of around 44% in the last few days, which took us back down to $1.16. We traced back up over the last 48 hours to over $1.20. We had a big retracement yesterday, as we have seen in multiple charts. That is good profit taking mechanism here. What does this tell to me? It's telling me people are taking profits along the way because they believe that this big run is coming. The next couple of months are critical to take profits along the way, guys. I will not emphasize that enough in our videos. The next key points for today especially, which is the 24th of September as of recording, if we can close above these marks that we have registered here currently, especially over this mark here of $1.20, that is going to be fantastic. Yes, we've had a drop today, but what's important to understand is support levels, okay? What's really good here is we had previously around the 15th, 16th, and a bit around the 23rd of August as well as of course historically, we've had multiple resistance trying to push the barrier of this mark here. And in fact, I'm going to draw it in so you know roughly where I'm talking about. It's pretty much actually where it's sitting right now in terms of its price point, but we're just going to emphasize this here, right about there. Okay, so what we're going to do is try and keep a continuation of close above this sort of $1.19 area. If we can do that for another day or two, I think that we can definitely start really pushing for this 138 level. Okay, we tried it 2 days in a row, maybe a third you could argue we kind of tried. It was kind of a terrible attempt, but certainly 2 days ago, 22nd, 23rd of September, we did touch on that 138 barrier. Okay, and we did it on the second day, but we had the retracement. I think that's just because of this candle reduction. It maybe sent a signal of bullish momentum into the equation, and profits were taken in case of concern. We see that in the MACD that the gap is widening, so it's still in a bearish mood, but this area is critical. Okay, if we can stay above 119, we can stabilize there and push up back to that 138 as a test mark. If we break this mark here at 118, we could come back down to test the lower levels, i.e. around these kind of marks here, around the 107. Now hopefully, I think we're in a position where, because we've had the 44% retracement, there's not too much risk involved in terms of how lower we could go. But my argument is always that we could always go around up to 70% reduction, but I'm just going to stick it up at 60 right now. Could we come and test these areas is a big question. The question is, yes, of course, we can always do that. That's the whole point of this crypto market. It's almost sometimes something you cannot predict. You can have a good estimation and trend line, but actually, what would that look like? Because would we be too concerned if it came down there? I don't massively think so. I think in the long projection, it's fine. But if we just look at where it is now, I'm hoping that we do get stabilization here and we start pushing up. And that's kind of the indicator that I feel that we will do eventually in the next couple of weeks. Leading into the middle of October and the end of October, I think that we could start aiming really towards that previous all-time of around $2.68, I think it was. So it's really interesting. The next couple of days are going to be important. We've got to try and close over that 119 and push ourselves up to those next levels. Is it possible to come down? Of course, we need to look at the lower potential buy opportunities, and I will draw those in. It's always good to strategically think about both options, both taking profits when the rises are occurring, but also determining potential buy opportunities, utilizing the accumulation you've done from profit taking, or if you're just there to potentially buy dips, that's absolutely fine as well. There is no right and wrong mechanism here. It's down to your strategy, your research, and your thoughts and opinions as well. All I can do is think about what I'm going to do and see if that reflects out. Okay, so we've got this point here. These are the key areas. We will just draw this one in here. So that's the line that we want to try and achieve over the next couple of days and get closes over there. This level is critical, really critical in where we are right now, as to we need to keep within this area to stabilize and push upwards. If we break this line and we get a day close under that again in a row, we may start pushing down to this 107. So for me, as a potential buy opportunity, I don't tend to go for a rounded number, okay? So I would be starting around about that 112, just maybe 111. So $1.11.4 as a key opportunity area, as a buy mechanism. I'm just going to remove these two squares here so we don't get confused as these potential buy opportunities, because obviously they're higher. It makes no sense. And I always tend to do one slightly lower as well. So what I'm going to do actually to make this easier is I'm going to utilize this same box, but I'm going to draw it at its lowest possible point that I think is a good opportunity. So I would be saying between 11.47 as a top end one, and 10. I think that might be a bit too bullish, but I would go maybe as a cheeky one, 108.32 as a potential buy opportunity. Can it go lower? Let's think about that as well, just in case. I hope not, but I'm just looking roughly maybe around here. I think would be a good opportunity because we've had a few resistance opportunities in that similar area. So there could be a cheeky one if we had a major crash and to complete maybe a potential up to 70% retracement since that top line at around 102. I'm going to put some in there with some cash anyway. Personally, it's not financial advice, but just in case, it's always worth it. And IOTA is a big project. It's one for the future, 100%, but there's also opportunity for short-term gains. And even in a short space of time, if this hits, we've got a good couple of months or so before the generation of the supposed big run that we have coming up. So there's lots of opportunity. So why am I putting them lower? We're anticipating the potential structural break here, just in case. The bearish momentum is continuing. The selling volume is increasing. So we haven't quite got that nice little wave yet. We're in the middle of the wave. So I do anticipate 1 or 2 days of real uncertainty as to what we're doing before we start seeing a tail off. The histogram showing some paler whites where hopefully we see this kind of mechanism going into a small green. But I don't anticipate that small green uprise until maybe the second week of October, possibly. Let's keep an eye on it. Let us know in the comments below if you're holding IOTA. Let us know what you think of the project, what we've discovered here in the Dell technology, as well as the understanding of some of the case studies. Let us know what you think. What other content do you want us to cover in these kind of things? It always helps us improve the channel. We'll wrap it up there, guys. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you and IOTA on the moon. Bye-bye.